It's very early morning here in Bergen, Norway, and I cannot sleep. I suffer from insomnia, and one of the ways to battle insomnia is to actually just get out of the bedroom and stay awake if you can't sleep. So I was thinking that if I'm awake anyway, why not talk about insomnia? And in this video I will be tired, so let's just improvise and see how it goes. I have been suffering from insomnia since I was a child, and the reason for that is, of course, that I'm from a very abusive home. There was always fighting and chaos in my home, and my parents, they were not equipped to raise children, and so I never actually learned to sleep, and I never had a chance to sleep. So I remember that it became really horrible. My insomnia really kicked in, or became far worse when we moved from a rather big house to a rather small house. Because it was so... in the big house we lived in, I had basically my own floor, and the house was built in a way that made the bedrooms be quite far from each other. At least my bedroom was quite far from other bedrooms in the house. But when we moved to a smaller house, and it was a chaotic family with screaming parents, and then it of course became far more hard to sleep. So when I was around 16, that was kind of the end for my ability to sleep at all. And in Norway, as mentioned in the previous videos, we don't have healthcare in Norway. We pay a ton of tax, but we do not receive healthcare. If you're a tourist, you might believe that we have good healthcare and free healthcare in Norway, but it ain't free and it ain't healthcare. So I was actually 39 before I received insomnia treatment. And that is many years, and I was in contact with the healthcare system a lot, and I was continuously saying that I needed help to sleep and that I couldn't sleep and that I suffered from severe sleep deprivation. So, but when I was 39, I actually got insomnia treatment, and that is the only treatment I have received from the psychiatry of Norway that actually was a treatment. So I will talk a bit about that treatment and how I live with it, because it didn't fully cure my insomnia, but it gave me far better sleep, and it also gave me tools to live with the insomnia. And here I also have to say, and here I also have to say that I am retired and my child is living with his father and not with me. So I have an ability to actually live with my insomnia a lot of other people in Norway don't have. So there are a lot of people with insomnia out there who is actually never able to sleep. And so taking it into consideration that I actually have the ability to battle my insomnia night after night after night for the rest of my life, probably, hopefully, maybe. That I have the ability to do that makes me a bit, when I talk to you about how well the insomnia treatment worked on me, that is in the context of that I am actually retired and at home and I don't have a child here. So this does not mean that the insomnia treatment was a success treatment and it would help everybody. So if you have gone through the same or similar insomnia treatment and I sit here and say, oh my God, it worked so well, but it didn't work for you, please remember that we are probably in different situations, in different contexts. Okay, so the insomnia treatment I was finally granted when I was 39, and that was 2 years after I fully broke down. So that will tell you how slow and cruel the Norwegian healthcare system is. But okay, I was 39 and the insomnia treatment was an 8-week long course. It was a kind of CBT treatment, and there was no individual treatment there. It was no individual sessions with the therapist or the nurse in charge. The only time I talked with the team behind insomnia treatment individually was a conversation before I attended the course. And in that conversation, I talked with the nurse, and she was just asking me some questions, and I was just telling her a bit about my sleep deprivation and my problems and my symptoms. And she said that, yeah, it sounds like you could benefit from this insomnia treatment. So that was the only individual treatment. And then these 8 weeks, they were basically just lectures. So it was a package of advice and information and techniques that together gave the patients a good toolbox to battle the insomnia. And sleep deprivation was, sleep restrictment. To restrict sleep was the kind of main ingredient. So every session we had, that was in the beginning, the therapist and the nurse in charge of the course, they just did the math on how much we had been sleeping during the previous week. And then there was this lecture. So it was very little individual communication with the therapist and nurse, and mostly just sitting in this group and listening and talking. And you could attend. It was a constant intake and outtake of patients. So you could start at any point and you could leave at any point. And some patients used less than 8 weeks and some patients used a bit more than 8 weeks. And the goal was to just master the technique, to just master the tool and sleeping. So when you had reached a level stable sleep, you were done. Then you could just go home. And what was lovely about that treatment was that the therapist and the nurse, they took no credit because the hard work was actually done by the patients. So they took no credit and they celebrated every win. So I remember we were always cheering and applauding, and every time I was there, every group session, there was 1 or 2 patients who were ready to leave, and it was cheering and applauding, and we were so happy for each other. So it was a very positive, optimistic attitude. There were no talking about emotions, no talking about reasons. There were no individual focus. The only individual focus was just to do the math, and if you had some individual questions. And during those 8 weeks, I think I maybe was there 10 weeks, that I was there a bit longer, but it was so effective. And during those few weeks, I went from being this total wreck to actually have a stable sleep. And the sleep restriction started with maximum 5 hours. For me, it started with maximum 5 hours, because the what you were supposed to do at home was tailored to you. So I started with 5 hours sleep. And after a couple of days, I had this massive migraine. And by 5 hours of sleep, I don't mean that I necessarily got 5 hours sleep each night, but I had this window of 5 hours in my bed. And if I couldn't fall asleep inside a window of 15, 20, 30 minutes, I had to get up again and stay up until I was tired again. So it wasn't 5 hours sleep, it was this 5-hour chance of sleeping. And I got this massive migraine attack after just a couple of days, and I lost my eyesight, and it was temporarily. So I had to be allowed to sleep a bit more, or to stay in bed a bit more. So sleep restriction, to sleep less, to stay in bed less, was kind of the key. And then I also had to do everything in my power to stay awake during the day. And for me, with a dissociative disorder and practical narcolepsy, it's diagnosed as dissociative disorder, but it functions as narcolepsy. So I was falling asleep everywhere and anywhere. And so I had to do everything in my power to just stay awake during the day, and that included for me to also not meditate, even though the insomnia treatment team was advising us to meditate and relax during the day, because we had to, it was also a part of the treatment to train ourselves to relax and to train on different techniques that could help us sleep in the night. And we had to do that during the day, but not so much that we fell asleep. So it was really important to stay awake. So I did everything in my power to stay awake. And it was a hard work. But oh my God, how it functioned. It was kind of a miracle. But then again, I have to say again that this is in a context where I actually am not working. And this is one of the reasons why I am retired, because if I were in a formal job, I could not sit here now and say that this was working, because I would have been too tired at work and done low quality work. So yeah, it functioned, but it's still not a cure. So I'm still struggling with it. But why am I struggling with this insomnia? Does it mean that the insomnia treatment didn't work, or what's the reason? Well, that insomnia treatment was kind of only for the brain, only for teaching the brain the art of sleeping. But there can be a lot of reasons why you wake up. And one of the reasons why I wake up in the middle of the night is, for example, nightmares. You can't train away nightmares. They will happen. And I also have breathing issues, so I often wake in the middle of the night. It's luckily not so often now, but I wake up in the middle of the night with this kind of breathing stop, and nobody quite understands what it is, but I do have a dissociative disorder, so it's kind of categorized under that. So it's a kind of Tourette's thing where I just stop. It's a kind of tick where I stop breathing. So the nightmares, one thing, the breathing problems is another thing, and then I also get panic attacks starting in my sleep, so I can wake up in the middle of a panic attack. And that also has to do with my disorders and with my traumas, my PTSD, and that is also something that is very difficult to train away, because what happens when you're asleep, you're just not in control over it. And then, of course, there is the situation I'm in, where my son is in a horrible situation, and so I think about that constantly. And I often, if I wake up in the middle of the night, even just to go to the toilet or something, I start thinking automatically about my son, and he's on my mind all the time. And what has happened to him and is happening to him, and what has happened to me and is happening to me, and the abuse we are enduring from Bergen Kommune and from Norway and from a lot of people. It's very difficult to sleep when you know you have to help your child, but you don't know how you can help your child. So that is a big reason for why I'm awake a lot. And then there is the problem of pain, because with my dissociative disorder, because I was so severely beaten as a child, and my parents and other people inflicted so much physical and mental pain on me. I dissociate from pain. So at one point in my life, I had so much pain and injuries and illnesses that I didn't even notice. I could have huge infections, and I didn't notice them before it was almost too late, because I just dissociated from pain. And also in Norway, especially if you're a woman, if you contact the healthcare system with a problem, you are just told that, oh, you're a woman, so you're too sensitive, just go home and shut up. So I was also in my adult years told again and again and again by physicians and by therapists and nurses and so on that I was too sensitive, and that the cure for everything was to stop being so sensitive. Just shut your little mouth. And that also made my dissociation from pain worse. So I noticed less and less and less that I was injured and had infections and so on. And in the end, I, of course, broke down. But that means that now, because my brain has this constant problem, this chronic problem with understanding pain, I can't use painkillers. Of course, I can in sometimes, but to stay away from painkillers is important for me, because painkillers, they fuck with the brain's ability to understand pain. That's the that's the thing with painkillers. So that just makes my dissociative disorder worse. So the painkillers kind of function like my brain is already functioning, so it's just making it worse. It's making it less probable for me. If I take painkillers, I will just probably not discover that I'm harmed. And often in the middle of the night, because I am then relaxing and not concentrating on anything else, my concentration actually goes towards my body, and suddenly I stop dissociating from pain, and there comes the pain. So I can be in very severe pain in the middle of the night, and one of the problems there is also that I forget, and I should be more disciplined on having this relaxation time before I go to sleep. So if I sit and meditate for an hour, maybe 2, before I go to sleep, I can relax and get rid of some of the muscle cramps and muscle pain and so on, so that it's easier for me to sleep. But that's difficult. As I said in the previous videos, it has been difficult for me for some kind of reason to sit in these long meditation sessions. So yeah, that was a bit about insomnia and how it is for me. I will put a link in the description to that insomnia treatment, because as long as it's still available on YouTube, I will check that afterwards. And because it is on YouTube as a free self-help course. So if anybody can use it, use it. And was there anything more I should say about sleep? No, I think that's it. Something that's very important for me is to actually, I never, even though I'm retired, I never sleep during the day. I live my life as if I had a job to go to. So I get up in the morning and I start my day, and I never, I live in this schedule. So yeah, I will advise other people to never use the opportunity that you're retired to kind of behave like you're on holiday or something, because it's not good for you. Okay, that was it. Bye.